Hey everybody, welcome to another How to Succeed podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague with Sandler, and this is the show that helps you get to the top and stay there. This week we're talking with Jeff Stasiuk about how to write sales copy that's not too pushy. You know, just the right amount of pushy, not too pushy, not too weak, just those ones that capture attention and get people into your funnel. So, great stuff. The following podcast is copyrighted by Sandler Systems Inc. and protected by U.S. copyright law. If you want to find Jeff, go to b2bworkingword.com. All right, here we go. Jeff, welcome to the podcast. My first question for you is, tell me a little bit about sales copy and what we're talking about today. What do you think the important part is?
Well, sales copy is the written word, right? It's typically what gets people into the sales conversation. You have to attract them, you have to interest them, and at that point, it typically gets handed off to professional salespeople with professional training, typically like Sandler offers. And then I also provide sales copy tools so that you can take those prospects through the funnel at each stage, giving us something that nudges them to the next step. And ultimately, poop, out the other end, customer, right? And then, of course, there's retention copy as well. So it's all about tools, sales enablement tools that help in the sales process.
Love that. Now, the easy one. How do most people mess this up?
Being too loud and too strident and too pushy, right? Modern buyers are typically modern buyer committees. They got a ton of information being thrown at them, right? You got the internet, you got your wife's Facebook feed, you got your girlfriend's Facebook feed, you've got with other girls at the same time. Everything's happening at once. Everyone's yelling, "Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me," right? Yelling in a metaphorical sense. The boss is saying, "Let's go in that meeting with 20 other people," which of course we all know is probably a waste of time. Bottom line, attention is being pulled thin. So how do you get the KLT factor with these people so you can get a conversation going later in the sales process? KLT being know, like, and trust factor. I advocate, a lot of top copywriters these days, the modern business process, slowly develop it over time. And there's certain tips, call them tricks, if you will. They're not manipulative. They're actually psychological triggers, which will help you get that relationship going as long as you don't push it.
We're going to get into those for sure, but I want to stick with this ideal attitude for a little bit longer. I think you nailed it. I think we said we're consuming something like 5 to 10 times the amount of information we were in the 80s just as human beings. And when people yell and shout all these messages, they end up all sounding the same, right?
Exactly.
That, like, everybody says, we have great customer service, great ROI. You'll never believe these life-changing, mind-blowing results, now 20% off. And if we do that, we kind of really end up sounding a lot like our competition. So it's really hard to separate or to get anybody to take action on those things. And sometimes they work for a little while. Maybe you find a niche in TikTok or something, and for 6 months or something, a crazy message like that'll work. But I feel like they just work well enough to keep going and for people to keep using these worn out tactics. So can you tell us a little bit more about the attitude of abundance and finding sustainable things that, like you said, are based on psychology that'll work for a long time or for the rest of your business?
Okay. I like to start with what attitude is. All right. And because if you're not entering both the sales conversations and, in my case, the sales enablement tool creation process, if you're not writing that email to the cold email to a prospect or the follow-up email with the right attitude, then you're missing the mark right off the get-go. You're going to, as you say, get lost in the sea of voices. And maybe you're lucky if you have an amazing offer at some ridiculously low price for an expensive, complex item. Maybe they'll pay attention to it. Maybe they'll be entertained by that TikTok video for a period of time, but it's not substantial, right? It's not real. It's not really giving them that value proposition that really is going to make their life different. Okay, so back to attitude. So what really makes up attitude? There's really two factors to it. It's really intent and mindset, right? You got to go in with the right mindset and the right intent. Now, intent is typically made up of warmth and competence. There have been studies done by several prominent consultants, one of them being Neil Rackham, that says if your intent is to just push your quota, get your sales target, if that's your intent, and you always be closing the ABCs, if you're always going to be trying to close, you'll actually end up with less closing. You'll actually end up with less success. Neil Rackham in the late 1980s, the modern selling world, actually did a study of 35,000 sales calls. And he found that the people that pushed more in an individual sales call, no matter what their skill level, closed 33% less business. People do not like to be pushed. They don't like to be bullied, especially today. They want to be guided and feel like they're in control and not feel like they're being manipulated. All right, so it's about intent. And intent, as I said, is really about the warmth that you portray. That's number one. That's first characteristic. A team of 200 psychologists have established this already. And it's about establishing competence. If you're warm and an idiot, they'll like you, but they won't necessarily buy from you. If you're competent, but a real, can use some words here, jerk, all right, I buy from you because they'll get what they need from you, but you're not going to develop a long-standing relationship to get a lot of business in the future. So warmth and competence are important to have going into writing anything and talking to these people and eventually in the sales conversations, all right? So what sort of warmth and intentions, that's great, you're warm and fuzzy. The mindset needs to be that you want to put the client in a better place. Not really wanting to give these people value. You got to be convinced that your product, your service, your product, your service is going to put them in a better place. Them personally, in business world, it also has to be for their company, right? There's that whole dichotomy thing happening. They're people, but they're also buy for a company. So they got to be in a better place, all right? So the right attitude, this is what I like to say it. Lose the ego, be curious, be helpful, be a valuable resource, and don't be a pest. All right, that's what business people want. They want to get the goods. All right, they want.
How hard is that, really? Right?
How hard is it? They want to like you. Be a nice person. Be true and honest. All right. I've got a favorite quote. You and I were chatting before this went on. You said, "Do you have any favorite quotes?" So, sorry, I'm going to preempt you a little bit here.
There you go.
Because I thought of this. So one of my favorite quote currently in the modern selling world, especially in copywriting and the go slow process, is by a gentleman named Nick Usborne. Nick Usborne is in Toronto, and he's one of the most well-established, preeminent, large company copywriters ever. People hire this guy for gazillions of dollars to give 20 minutes of advice. Anyways, I've taken courses from this guy. I've talked with him. He's just an amazing dude. His quote that I like is give, and then maybe ask. So give a lot of value. Don't be a pest. Have the right intent that you want to help them by giving them whatever value. It's usually information in our case. And then ask for something in return. Eventually, the ask is doing business with them. So that kind of summarizes, if you will.
I love it. I think you absolutely nailed it right there. I don't have anything to add other than just +1 thumbs up on all of that. But that you led us also right into behavior and doing the right thing at the right time. And I feel like people mess this up, especially in their advertising, but also in their sales messages. Is there's early funnel stuff, there's late funnel stuff, there's middle of the funnel stuff, there's moving the conversation forward. How do you think about getting the right message to the right person at the right time? Because I really feel like that's the whole game here.
Okay, that starts, and you're absolutely right. You have to put that thought into where your prospect or client is in the funnel. Typically, prospects and funnels, and clients later on when you're trying to figure out what more you could sell to them. So put that thought into where they are personally. Research it. My God, there's all kinds of research tools. Google Advanced. Look at their LinkedIn company posts. See what they're posting on Twitter. So many companies post, "Hey, this is what happened to us now," sort of thing, right? Figure out where they're at in their mindset. Look at their company performance records. They're public companies. Look at their company statements. Did they knock it out of the park last year or last quarter? And now they're looking at targets which are even higher. Well, they're probably pretty stressed because they have to perform better every quarter, right? You're only as good as your last quarter, right? So look at where they're at, right? So wherever they are in the funnel, beginning of the funnel, the copy, the right written word, usually is trying to build awareness. So you have to assume that they don't know what the hell you do, or you know, how you can improve their lives. Middle of funnel, they need convincing, right, to be able to get to the table, or to be convinced that you're a salesperson that's competent that can help them. All right. So get the conversation going with some warmth, demonstrate the competence, and have copy which will actually support what you're saying, right, in various phases. And there's all kinds of different tools for that. They don't believe in what you're saying, give them a white paper, right? Big research paper. If they think you're full of baloney because they've never heard of you, give them a whole bunch of testimonials. There's different tools that you can use, right, at the right time. And every salesperson should have a toolkit of these copy articles or whatever, the written words, to be able to support what they're saying to their customer. All right. So as far as behaviors go, just to wrap it back up again, be disciplined and consistent in how you write and the articles that you give to them, wherever the customer or prospect happens to be in the funnel. Disciplined and consistent. All right. And if you use the tools that hopefully your marketing and sales management team, communication directors have given you in a consistent way, then you can focus on the sales process, developing that relationship. I can't tell you how many salespeople I know and I've worked with and I've trained that spend all their time coming up with these sales tools which aren't that effective, and then forgetting that their job is to actually develop a relationship with the customer.
Have a
So
conversation. Yeah.
exactly. So develop your behaviors to focus on the customer, use the tools that should be given to you, and be consistent in that behavior, right? Be consistent in applying the tools at the right time.
The only thing I would add to that with the discipline part is knowing when not to use the tools as well. A lot of people get, a new shiny brochure or one pager, and they want to give it to everybody, whether they ask for it or not. And so just like Jeff said, he described it perfectly, but make sure you keep those in your file folder. You keep them in the Google Drive. You don't pass them out until they're perfectly timed, until somebody asks you for it, or until you need to provide the documentation to continue that conversation.
Exactly. And that's why I say selling is a mental chess game. You're constantly trying to figure out what to do, when to do it, and how to react to the customer. It's probably what drew me to it in the first place. Was it's like playing advanced Sudoku, constantly. It's such a cool thing, but it's hard. It's hard to sell.
All right, now we get into the fun part. So it's time for technique. Any tips, tools, or hacks that you could give us to help us improve our sales copy and make it convincing, but not too pushy?
I had a hard time narrowing this down. I've taken thousands of hours and I've had tons of experience in writing this stuff. And so I try to figure it out. So I hope this isn't too much, but I've got what I call the top 15. All right. There's the top 5, the middle 5, and then the kind of the afterthought 5. Wow. I'd like to go through those in those sections. Okay. And I'll be brief on each one. I know that I did a little too much of that, so I'll try and keep it.
It's all good. You're crushing it today. Thanks. Okay. I appreciate you sharing.
All right. So top 5 hacks, tips, and tricks. All right. And I mentioned this a bit before, but do your homework. All right. Research them and their company, where they are in their buyer's journey, and make sure that you give them information, as you pointed out a minute ago, that supports them in where they currently are. All right. If they're not really much aware of what you do, don't try and give them the sale price for the thresher or the big pump or whatever that you happen to sell. All right. Take it easy. Once again, go slow. Take it a step at a time. All right. So do your homework. Critical. 2, this is a big one. Personalize your communications. All right. Everybody likes to have the focus on them. I don't care who they are. Mary, the purchasing manager, John, the engineering manager, that's a decision influencer. You got to focus on them. All right. So personalize your comms. So for example, when I send an email out to somebody, or I write a template for somebody else to send out to somebody, I'll look at Google Advanced, Google News about the company, the website, person's personal Facebook page. I have an anonymous, Facebook persona, if you will, that I can look at stuff. LinkedIn, once again, Look at anyone's Twitter feeds and find out about them in a non-creepy way. Find out what the company's done. Have they just had a great team training session? Did this person you're addressing have an anniversary recently? Did they do something that warrants a congratulations? As soon as you say, hey, congratulations on opening that new facility in Des Moines, Iowa, they perk up. Hey, this guy's done his homework. Oh, cool. That's really neat. Okay, so personalize your communications right off the get-go. Number 3, use business casual wording. I can't stand marketing speak. Talk like you're. This is some of the other best advice I've got. You're sitting next to a business buddy in a bar, having a drink at a trade show after the fact, and you're having a conversation about how work's going. That's how you talk in writing. All right, that's how you should write. All right. 4, talk and write as equals. Never start with, hey, I'm sorry to interrupt your day, but would you consider, having a meeting? Don't do that. Like, that sets you down here and there up there, and this is bad. Like, start with, hi, John. I'm a salesperson for da-da-da. I have this. By the way, congratulations on that. I'd like to meet, whatever, right? Start on equal footing, all right? Number 5. Suggest small steps and advances and don't rush. So at the end of most communications, whether it's verbal or written, you need a call to action. You need to suggest something. Ultimately, in the sales world, you want to have that meeting. You got to have that discovery meeting. You got to figure out what their pain points are, etc. But before you can even get there, you got to develop the KLT factor, know, like, and trust. They got to like you. They got to know you. They got to trust you. Why should they give you their time? Like, people are busy, right? All these communications, their bosses yelling at them, the wife telling them this, their husband telling them that. So take small advances and steps and don't push it. You can have several communications where you offer them something first, ask them how they like it, ask if they wanted to discuss that technical piece on maintenance, performance issues for the piece of machinery or whatever the case might be. All right, so small steps. All right.
I love that. I always say, like, don't get married on the first date. Like, you're trying to get enough interest to get a phone number and enough interest on the phone to get a first date, enough interest on the first date to get a second date. If you keep doing that, eventually somewhere down there, we promise you'll get married.
Now, why doesn't that surprise me that you related that whole thing to dating? Like, that's good. I like that.
It's the last name. When you got Montague like Romeo, you gotta bring it back to romance.
That's good.
Okay. Now, any other tips, tricks, and hacks for us?
Yeah, I'm going to go through just 2 or 3 of the highlights that I've gotten some of the others, and the next few are real down to earth kind of hacks for creating these attractive copy, as I call it. Copy that wants to be read, copy that people will read. All right. Number 1, small sentences. All right, less syllables, and make your writing at a grade 7 reading level or less. I kid you not. Unless you're writing to scientists, which case you can go up to grade 10 university level. Most of us write at a grade 9, 10, or 11 level, no matter what education level you're at. You got to dumb it down to grade 7 level. Like, I'm not kidding. It's study after study has shown that that's the most attractive for people to read. Little known fact, Microsoft Word has an edit feature that will actually determine, it'll analyze your paragraphs or whatever, and it'll tell you what grade level you're at, and it'll tell you how you can actually chop it down and make it sound simpler. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, make it visually appealing. God, I can't stand it when I see people send emails, and I got tons of sample emails. I sign up for every email in the world so that I can analyze their stuff. Paragraphs, pages of text. You look at it, you go, I don't need to read that. Like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. So we call it chunkifying in our copywriting side of the business. Make chunks of 2 or 3 sentences at the most and start a new paragraph. All right, figure out a way to actually create a space. Make it visual that way. Next, have headers. Like, actually state what the next 2 or 3 paragraphs is about and make it worthwhile. State what they're going to learn out of it, because guess what? People are busy. They don't read everything. They read the headings. And if you can get them interested in the headings, they'll actually go back and dive in a deeper way and develop that stronger connection with what you're writing. All right, so you got to make it simple. All right, you got to make it real easy to see. All right, next one. And there's 3 more. Okay, and then I'm done. All right, like I said, I can go on forever.
We want people to reach out to you too. He's given and given and given, and then we'll do an ask here in a minute.
There you go.
3 more, and then we had a couple of questions from the audience too. We'll do those.
Okay, sure. All right. Always sell the call to action. All right. I can't stand it when I see people write things like, I suggest we have a meeting. Here, I'm free on these particular dates. Tell them why you want to have a meeting. What's in it for them? I suggest we have a meeting so you can ask all the questions you want and you can bring that to your purchasing committee and have all the answers or whatever, right? So have a reason for the call to action to be triggered, right? Critical. Next, don't use exclamation marks, bolding, and a strident voice. God, I can't stand when I see people use bolding everywhere and loud voices. People don't like that. People in business
You're
get
not
that.
supposed to do it in all caps.
No, exactly. Please don't. Don't do that. Right? A lot of people still do it. It just screams salesy, right? Salesy. Don't do that. All right. Next, last, prove your claims and statements with belief builders. There are 11 major ways to establish belief in what you claim in your messages. A lot of people start out with or at some point say, we have the best pump for the agricultural industry in the world. Yeah, that's what the business your target's saying. Yeah, really? Yeah, I don't believe you. Everyone says that. So, but if you say something like 321 farms across the Midwest have invested in our pumps, they think it's the best. Here's some of the testimonials or something like that. It immediately makes it believable. And it has to be true. You can't make this shit up, right? It's got to, sorry, you can't make this up, right? It's got to be real. So find those belief builders, and it literally activates a psychological trigger. There's all kinds of different things that go on in your brain that say, oh, I believe this guy. Oh, no like and trust factor just went up. Cool. Maybe we should have a conversation and find out more. Okay. That's all the yap about at the moment.
So good. So much great stuff. We did have Phil ask you in your first set, number 5 was tiny asks. Is that right?
Yep.
All right. Awesome. We nailed that. And you must be our international man of mystery because we got people checking in from Kenya. We got the UK here. We've got Sweden. And I wanted to give a special shout out to Anna in the Ukraine because you were saying your last name. We're talking with Jeff Stasiuk, but to Ukrainians, how do you pronounce that one?
Stasiuk.
Stasiuk. There you go. So Anna, that was just for you, make you feel a part of the show there too. And of course, California and all the US in here. We had one other question there from Jeff. He said, where can you find that feature on Word? I might have missed that. Did you share a feature or
I did. It's the edit function. So it looks like a little pen or quill or pencil, and it'll be in your ribbon at the top. Normally it's at the right-hand side, but if you go in the search bar and you go Word edit function or something like that, it'll probably tell you exactly how to get there and just activate it. And then it'll always be there. When you have your text, click on it and it'll have a bar comes up on the right. It'll tell you all kinds of stuff about how you've written and how appropriate it is.
Awesome. Canada and Poland had to get in there as well. Once again, we're talking with Jeff Stasiuk. You can find him at b2bworkingwords.com. I highly recommend you go check out some of the information there and reach out to Jeff if you need to work on your sales copy. And I feel like everybody this year is going to be trying to find those slight edges, the things that separate you from the competition. This is a great one. Amazing stuff here today. Jeff, I just had a couple more questions about you personally. At this point in your career, how do you define success?
You know what? That's a great question. I'm probably in my 8th iteration of careers. I went from very active in the sales. I was a sales manager, sales executive, running sales teams, and always having my territory. And awesome. As I said, it's like the Sudoku of the business world. But I wanted to take a bit of a step back, and I love writing, so I wanted to get into sales enablement and copywriting, helping other salespeople get success. And that's what turns me on, is helping. I know it sounds like I'm making this shit up, but I really do like helping other people almost as a mentor by providing them with the tools so that they can knock it out of the park. Like, it's really cool.
I love that. Now, what was the biggest failure you're most proud of, or the biggest struggle, lesson learned you had to get over in order to be successful?
That's a good question. And I've had other people ask me that as well. So that's why I seem to have an answer without thinking too hard about it. I think I was trying to do too much myself.
Mm.
Whether it's reinventing the wheel or figuring out these copywriting tricks that work. I figured out maybe a third of them, and then I took all these certifications and said, oh my gosh, there's a lot more here. And if I had gotten help earlier on in my career, I could, man, it just would have been so much better, so much easier. So get the training, and it's the same in sales. Don't try and figure out how to deal with sales yourself. Go to get training. Sandler, for example, a great, awesome, professional, functional training that works. If I'd done that like 30 years ago, I'd be knocking out of the park. So yeah, that's the biggest regret, is that I tried to do shit myself, and I should have gotten help.
That's a great lesson learned and a great share there. And thanks for the shameless plug for Sandler. But I'm not going to reward it since you stole my favorite quote answer and used it earlier. I'm going to ask you a tough question from a LinkedIn user here who says, have you used Chat GPT for sales copy yet? And what do you think of the new AI, the artificial intelligence that is writing our sales copy for us now?
I think it's a decent way to start with a base set of copy. It'll give you something that you can work with. And if you don't edit it, it's going to sound like it came from an AI. The trouble with AI is, and this is fully admitted by ChatGPT and other AI tools, is that it curates existing information out on the web. So if you're going to do that, you're going to be a me too, right? So you're not going to set yourself apart from your competition if everyone's doing that. So you need to potentially use it, but edit it, create an opinion, figure out where the customer's at in their buying, in their purchasing journey, buying journey, modify it to suit that, add some of your experience, because that's what we typically can bring to a table with other people in the industry, and you have a unique piece that no AI can come up with until you publish that. And then ChatGPT steals it and puts it in someone else's curated article. Sorry to, right? So you got to be fresh all the time. That's why this is hard work, right? You got to be thinking, you got to be using the noggin to come up with things that are of value to the customer at their point in the journey. And AI can't duplicate that. So it's a useful tool, but I saw something the other day. I know I'm once again being too verbose. Someone asked this very similar question among my copywriting colleagues, and they actually asked ChatGPT to explain where it's beneficial and where it's not good for copywriters. And it came up with its own answer. It said, we just curate stuff that's out there, and we don't really come up with new opinions. So if you're a thinking person, you're going to do better than us. And a really cool thing is the new Google spiders, their algorithms that figure out web pages and where they all rank with SEO, search engine optimization, so that you get on the the search engine results page. It actually now knows how to recognize AI-driven copy and downranks it. Original, bright thinking, human brain stuff. I don't know how it does it. Puts it up near the top. The AI stuff gets driven to the bottom. So just be careful.
I think that'll definitely happen. I love all of those tips you shared. And I would just highlight that use it. Get that first draft out and save yourself a lot of typing time and a lot of thinking. But then put your thinking cap on, leverage Jeff's tips he shared today. You still have to personalize it to the person you're sending it to. You still have to make sure that call to action is rightly timed for the place in their buyer's journey and that baby step to continue the conversation forward, and all of the other great tips that Jeff shared today. Again, go to B2B Working Words and find Jeff Stasiuk. You can learn more about Sandler at sandler.com. And as always, don't forget, you need to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening or watching to it right now would be great. Click the like, the follow, share it with somebody that you think needs to hear it, and keep paying attention. We'll do a lot more of these podcasts here in the near future. The How to Succeed podcast is brought to you by Sandler, the worldwide leader in sales management and customer service. Remember, whatever you are, that's what I always say. We'll see you next week.